Today, we are looking at more plumbing. We're looking at onboarding flows and contract creation flows. So I've actually made a similar video to this, but it's been so long that I wanted to re-up on it because there's actually been a lot of changes. So this is a client of mine who basically now has a good contract as opposed to what they were doing beforehand. But this here is a form that once gets sent, triggers this automation, which generates a contract that looks like this, which once signed triggers an automation that looks like this, which triggers a bunch of other automations in tandem, from this to this to this to this one to this one and the rest. So what I'm going to do here is just explain the plumbing so that you can understand it for yourself, depending on how you're going to run your own specific automation, which is of this nature. I've done this probably 35 times now. And the reason why I wanted to show this video is because I keep on landing on the same infrastructure for this exact same automation. The principles have stayed the same. It's been the safest way to do this. And it's way better than the nonsense that was happening beforehand where there were 90 different fields and it became really disconnected from how things would actually flow. Because yes, you can get something really, really complex and really, really nice to be made. But if the thing doesn't work, who cares? So that's the reason why things look the way that they do right now. So this is how it works. We have this form, which is called send a contract. And I'm going to reduce the size of my face so that you can see it in more detail. Pretty simple. First name, last name, email, company name, start date, initial term length. Is this a rev share or a brand sponsorship? Will VAT be included? What's the total fee? What's the payment structure? What are the services? And you can see here how things look. And the way that I like to make a lot of the forms that I make is that I like to basically feed them the answers so that it's easy for them to do. Once that's been done, and that has come through, what will happen is the following. We will pick up a record ID. This is an Airtable, so this will generate a record. And that record ID will be something that we can send via webhook from the scripts inside of Airtable. It's one of the easiest and most ubiquitous ways that we've ever used Airtable, and I'll show you how it works. The whole point of it is we have automations here. These automations, all of these purple dots are us running some sort of code. And for the most part, the code that we're running is simple as hell. It's a really, really simple 3 lines. And you can actually find it online. And I always default to this. If you just look at Airtable make webhook, if you just search this, there is here it is, how to send data to a webhook URL. This Airtable community post from November 2022 literally has the exact snippet of code that you would use. So I use this, I copy this, I copy this, I copy this, and then I put it in here, and then I just I just add an input called record ID, and then I put this here. This just turns out that way every single time it gets sent, but it doesn't actually affect the code. It's fine. And that gives us this output. And again, this is being done in Make, but Make and NaN play the exact same role. You can take everything that I'm doing here in Make and you can copy and paste it in NaN. I'll show you exactly how things look as far as the plumbing is concerned inside of Make versus what it would look like and how you would do it if you're going to do it inside of NaN. But stop stressing. Who cares? Yes, this is still 2024. Keep clients longer. Reduce your churn. That's on you. Now, the contract creator will basically give us this, which is the record ID. Then we grab the form fill, which is just all of the information that we grabbed from the form in and of itself. And then we have this, which is a switch function. Now, a switch is basically an if statement in a, you can use regular expressions or different things for it, but the whole point of this is that this client has clients in Dubai, this client has clients in the US, this client has clients in Canada, has clients in different places, and also has clients in the UK. The UK clients get VAT. The non-UK clients do not get VAT. So if VAT equals yes inside of here, not there, inside of here, will that be included? If it equals a yes, then all we're doing is we're adding plus applicable VAT. And if it doesn't exist, then we're just making it an empty string. And that goes over here to create a contract. And this is the node that is the most important node. So we have the name of the document as it's being created. We have the template ID. We have the tokens that have been created. And we have metadata. And I'm going to go into the metadata in a second. But you just fill in the blanks based on what the form fill gave you. and you give it a name based on the name that you derived from the client, whether it be the first name, last name, or the full name, or whatever it may be. You pick your template ID, and then it fills in the gaps for you. Now, I'm not going to show this guy's whole contract, but just know that when you're making contracts inside of PandaDoc, the easiest way to make a contract that can carry over for a lot of other people is to have specific merge fields in specific places. And those merge fields are usually going to be first name, last name, company name, email, and then anything about services rendered. Where you have services rendered, oftentimes, if you're making it in the way that we're making it right now, which is through a form, you want to have a specific naming convention shown inside of the form, which is what needs to be shown inside of the actual contract. And that's the reason why, which I showed you at the start, and when you see from the form in and of itself, it's the reason why I have a lot of this writing, this really heavy writing, as guardrails for what goes inside of all of these. So that's the reason why we have that there. And when it comes to actually making this in PandaDoc, it's just copying and pasting text. Once you copy and paste the text, you can then just make little curly brackets for all of your variables. That's how we're able to connect these answers to the PandaDoc fields. That in and of itself will give us the contract, and it will create the contract, but we are not sending the contract. Reason being, and I've had a couple hiccups before with this, where this was unclear and based on what the client was. And my rule of thumb on this basically is I will not send a document in the early stages. I will not send a document if there are a lot of fields that need to be added to that form. And I will not send a document immediately off rip if I know that this doesn't need to go out absolutely immediately. But that all of those roles or all of those ideas or assumptions, once reversed, mean that I do just send a document. And I'll also send a document if it's not attached to a payment, because now we're playing with document values and pricing tables and things like that. So we're not actively sending the document, but what we are sending alongside this is a record ID from Airtable for this form fill. And you can see that over here with the value 43 ID. That's going to come into play in a second. Now, once this is completed, this automation triggers. So I'll show you an example of this trigger succeeding, and I'll show you what all of these blue spheres are. These blue spheres you can basically assume, if you're in NAN, are caller sub workflow. So we'll just call it that. But I'll show you how it works and what's meant to go inside them as well. PandaDoc gives you a ton of stuff once you have linked the webhook up with it. And a lot of the stuff doesn't actually need to be used. It's not actually that super important. But what you do get, though, is the name, the date created, the date modified, and you also get a bunch of different tokens. You also get the metadata. So now you can see we've sneaked an Airtable record ID, which was nowhere to be found on the actual contract itself, into the API so that we can now start to use it for our requisite steps. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you how we do this, or how this is going to work. The first thing that we do is we search for a client based on their email. If the client doesn't exist, what we do is we upsert them. So if they don't exist, we add them. If they do exist, we recreate them, or we essentially update them so that, you know, all of the values actually remain the same, or we have what we need where we need it. That now is something we are able to do. And if I actually show you what's going into what, you'll see that this here is a very basic email equals email formula, where the limit equals 1 and the output fields have all been selected. And this upsert a record here is the record ID for the actual person, and is also including all of the information that we got from PandaDoc, because PandaDoc is going to be the most correct information that we have. And we also just mark everything as active, and then we add the contract forms record ID as a linked record to the new person that has been made. So where this here had this metadata, which came from the form filling in of itself, when we have a completed contract, we can then bring that information back into the foray, and then you do what we need to do with it. This is really, really useful as a mental model, not just for this specific use case, but also for a ton of others. And the one that I can think of the most correctly from here are for people who are doing UGC. So when you're doing user generated content and you're reaching out to a bunch of different content creators and influencers to try and get them to give you raw content and B-roll that you can use for ad creatives for other clients, you're going to want to create an actual document or a contract for them so that they deliver on time, they do this in this situation, they do that in that situation. They also get guardrails for what the invoicing should be. Maybe they're being paid net 7, net 30, whatever it may be. It has all of that information in it. If you send this information through a form, the same way we've done this, because what we've done right now is a form to create a document, which again, if you take the words contract and contract form out of it, and we reduce or we remove the implied use from the name, we have a form and a document which gets e-signatured or signed electronically. These two things, when connected in this UGC case, you're going to, for example, have a contract that will go out, and then once it's gone out, you may already have pressed a button or a form or connected a UGC creator inside of your Airtable to said contract. Once that contract gets signed, you now can, if you have put the metadata of the UGC creator that you've kept inside of your Airtable, you can put that inside of the contract, and then when that contract gets signed, you can link the two things together inside of your Airtable, and you can understand from a statistical perspective, one, and also from just like a document safekeeping perspective, who signed on what, who signed on for who, and how many times have they been signed, when was the last time that they were signed. This is really, really useful for UGC people that I'm working with now who want to shortlist UGC creators for different purposes or for different clients. And it's just an easy way to just do a lot of data management on the back end. So that's what the metadata thing is. It's one of those like small but really useful things that if you have it it's actually really, really helpful. And if you know about it, you know you can use it. So that's what happens there. Now, once we've done that, we then send a message into private channels saying, this is the new client. We have a new little hatching chickling like icon emoji there. And then we say, check Airtable here, frame and Google folders will be created in the next couple of minutes. And then we send the onboarding email. And the onboarding email just contains a bunch of different stuff here. Hey, first name, welcome to the company. We're excited to have you on board, blah, 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 blah. And then we do these. Now, this is very much just a webhook URL plus the client's record ID, a timestamp, and the client's name. Having all of that information in all of these allows us to do the following. So I'm going to show you what the rest of these steps are. So the first thing that happens is the frame folder hierarchy gets created. And you'll notice that, again, as I've always spoken about on these videos, trigger, read, automate. So we get the trigger, which in this case is simply the timestamp, the client name, and the client records ID. We grab the client, we grab global frame IDs, and oftentimes we may or may not have them. And then we create the root client folder. Now, in fact, we do have the global frame IDs. This is actually that's one of the changes that happened between the old frame versus the new frame. There's only one row in this sheet, so we don't really have to put anything in here. Then we create the root client folder. We create this folder, which goes in here, this folder, which goes in here, this folder, which goes in here, this one, which goes in the root client folder, and this one that goes in the root client folder, as well as the ready to edit and the trash. Now, I believe actually posted goes in here. So we basically create the entire hierarchy. And what that gives us, if I click here, is a ton of data, and each of these bits of data have an ID. So this one is the rejected folder with this ID. This one here is the posted folder with this ID. And all we do is we update the client record with all of these IDs. The reason why we do this is because every single time we work with a client that is doing content or using Frame or using Google Drive or using any software where we need to be able to understand what's gone on for what person, what we're doing right now basically is we're enabling payload augmentation. And if you remember, payload augmentation is the ability to bring in external data from other sources based on IDs that you already have inside of your system. So if I know that I'm working with a client, like client A, for example, client A has this 15 different frame folders for different uses, 8 different Google Drive folders for different uses. They are using, let's say, like a smart lead or whatever it may be, and they have API keys. They also have workspace IDs, personal IDs. They have a Go High Level account, and they have an account ID and an API key as well. If all of the information is stored in a safe space, all I need to do is search for that client, and I can get all of that information, and I can do whatever action I want to do in all of those places where those IDs are resumed. That's the reason why this is the most important automation for any single system that you have. And if you do not have this set up anywhere, then what you're going to be doing is you will never be able to automate as much as you could automate. This is literally how tons of apps are made on the back end. This is literally what back-end data management looks like when you do it effectively, because it means that you can silo information, but you also have access to all the information that you need. So this is where we're creating a ton of different frame folders. We do the exact same thing with Google Drive as well. So trigger, read, automate. And all we're doing here is we're creating a client folder, we're creating a B-roll folder, we're creating a raw footage folder, and then we're taking all of the IDs, which again, you can see folder ID over here, folder ID over here. We drag them over to this Airtable step, and all we're doing is we're updating this folder ID as well. Then we have Slack Connect. Now, this one has evolved over time. This one also was the most annoying to deal with, but this has been a we've gotten this now down to a point where things are just way easier to manage. So how does it work? The webhook comes in, as always, from step 1, which is this one here, where we're creating the Slack channels. So that one always stays the same. Then we grab the Airtable record for the client. And then what we need to do is we need to remove all of the spaces inside of the name and replace them with a dash, because Slack won't accept them if you add a new channel when it has a space in it. All of the Slack work like that for forever. So that's the reason why we have that. And then we just create the channel name, and then we just call it client X text. And this here is just the client name. So company X client name. That's how it always works. Then we invite the bots. Now, if you are watching this after you've seen some of my Slack bot automations, or some of the things where I talk about external review, where you want to show clients things and then give them buttons to press based on based on the feedback that they can give, then you'll notice that a lot of that is run through Slack bots, custom Slack bots that are made, that are published to your workspace and not publicly to other people on Slack. This is where you actually add them. And if you do not add them to this channel up front, you will always run into a problem where channel not found will occur whenever you try to programmatically add a message to a client's channel. So what we've done is we've created this invite bots, invite users step. And all we're doing is we're inviting the main members of the staff. We're adding the bots that we've made for notifications, and we're adding the make bots that we've made, which are doing all of these items as well. If that fails, we still resume, because this is a user connection, and this user connection, I believe, is the owner. And because it's the owner will always see this new channel when it gets created. And if for whatever reason, nothing enters this channel, they can receive a message, or they can at least know to add everybody else that needs to be added. From there, we send the first message, and the first message says, "Hey name, thrilled to have you in here. This is what all of our conversations will be. If you haven't already, please fill out this onboarding questionnaire. Click here for your personal footage upload link. And also check your emails for the invoice link. If you're unsure about anything, don't hesitate to ask." Then we have the team message, which is just hey, we just created Slack channels, and so on and so forth. And then we have the invite Slack Connect user. Now, I'm not actually going to open this. The reason why is because I've exposed an API key that I'm just not going to show. But this is the Slack Conversations Connect. So I'm going to pull up the API request and show you exactly what I'm talking about here. So this is what it actually looks like inside of it. The URL is this. It's a GET request. And we have inside of the header, we basically have an API key, which is like authorization bearer, and then it's the token of the bot. And then the channel is the channel that was created over here. Over here. It's the channel ID for this channel that was created. So we have all of that information in there. And then once we have that information in there, we then just need to pass over an object which just has emails in it. So it's curly bracket, curly bracket, speech mark, emails, close speech mark, colon, speech mark, email, speech mark, curly bracket. I can't talk today. But yeah, that's all that gets passed through. And the way that this is meant to work, or what enables this to work, is having a custom bot made. So if you've made a make.com bot, i.e. you've just gone into here and you just clicked add, and the connection type is Slack bot, and then the connection name is whatever this is. If you've just done this, then it's just not going to work, because you don't have the right permissions. And this is what this is about. You need to have specific permissions. The permissions that you need, the conversations connect right. And that's just basically going to enable this to actually work. And then from there, we update the Airtable with the Slack IDs. And if it fails, we say, this is their email, manually invite them to this channel. And then we do the same thing. If for whatever reason, when we created we tried to create the channel, it didn't work. Oftentimes it's because it already exists. So what we do is we list every single channel, and then we just run a filter where if the name of the channel is the exact same, actually not as that, it's the exact same as this, which is, the naming convention of the channels, the external client channels, then what we do is we send a message, and then we run basically the exact same steps as we have before, because now we've actually filtered out every single channel apart from the one that we're actually working with. And that's step 4. Step 5 is very, very simple. Used to be way, way more complex, but all this is doing is it's because they use GoCardless instead of Stripe because of the fees. GoCardless, I think Stripe is not 3%. I can't remember how much Stripe actually takes, but GoCardless, I believe, of the way that these guys are using it, are getting way less fees. It's ridiculous because of the lump sums and the fees that they're actually getting. It's understandable as to why they have gone this route. But when you are using GoCardless, especially for companies that are in the UK, what you need to do is you need to create what's called a direct debit mandate. You basically need to authorize someone to take money from your account. So the way that looks is a bit like this. Now, I believe I can just create this one, and then I'll have a URL to show you. So if I run this, so you'll see that there's an authorization URL here. So if I open this, the person who clicks on this will basically just be taken to this. And all they need to do is put in their currency, their email address, country of residence, their first name, last name, billing address, and then they'll connect their bank through the OAuth inside of the banks. And then from there, they can basically go in and say, all right, we now have permission. We've given you permission to take the first payment. So all this is doing is it's just we're grabbing, again, trigger, read, automate. We're grabbing the client's record, and then we're creating that URL, and then we're sending it over to the client via email. We're also sending it into Slack, and then we're sending a message to the onboarding chat. And that is the new version. I keep hiding my face. That is the new version of the onboarding workflow. So you can see how everything has been siloed, which is the most important thing. If we have it to where there is step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, and then step 5 breaks, we may lose everything from step 1 beforehand. If step 1 breaks, we definitely lose it. We definitely lose everything that happens afterwards. So by splitting it up into different sub workflows, we maintain the integrity of the initial automation. If there are any issues with any of them, then we know that we can just go in bit by bit and just fix the things that are broken. And we also get comfort in understanding that everything that happens comes with its own Slack message that says, this thing is done, this thing is done, this thing is done, this thing is not done. And it also means that we're able to do a lot of really, really good error handling, because the more error handling that you do on larger automations, the more confusing things get. So if you're a business who's looking for something like this, or you don't already have something like this, there's going to be a link in the description. There's going to be some videos as well that you can watch where you can see some of the older versions of this automation and some of the other automations that we've been able to build for people, which we classify as what's called critical infrastructure. So if you don't have that, you need it. I have a bunch of videos, one on my channel, which also is called 20 automations that you must have. Take a look at that video. Talk to you soon.